In this video, I'm going to teach you how to place and modify ceiling elements. So we're going to begin by placing symbols for different ceiling elements and modifying them by both copying and moving. We're also going to adjust the host of ceiling elements, and I'll show you how to see your ceiling elements in multiple views. And then finally, I'm going to teach you how to adjust the cut plane of your ceiling so that you can see everything that you want to see. So we're going to begin by just placing a couple of lighting elements. And so it's pretty straightforward. We're just going to go to the reflected ceiling plan view. I'm going to keep the underlay of the furniture in because this will be helpful for me. Keep in mind that we have this grid laid out already that is going to allow us to organize elements in a repetitive way. But if you don't have a grid like this in the ceiling, then you would have to establish one by creating grid lines. And that's really important because a reflected ceiling plan needs to be aligned. Elements on it need to be aligned. Things need to be placed exactly, within these ceiling tile elements and, not crooked and things like that. So we're fortunate here, but we also know how to draw grid lines if we need to. And so, for example, we may have to add some grid lines and some measuring devices in here to make sure that when we place items that they look good. So let's begin by just placing some basic light fixtures in here. So the light fixtures are located in the Architecture and Component tab. We need to load them. And they're right here in Lighting. So we're going to use architectural lighting, internal. And you can see here there's a ton of different lights. And I would caution you, just the lights in Revit are, the pendant lights and things like that are very easy to recognize as being Revit. They're not particularly beautiful. So just be aware that lighting manufacturers also have their own Revit families that you probably want to bring in here as well. But we're going to need two. We're going to need the recessed can light. And there's a couple of different ones, but the recessed can one, we'll do the round LED right here. So I'm going to hit open and it's going to place it. Now, a couple of things. Lights have to be hosted on families, and you can see it's coming in as a side view. And that's because you can see here it says placed on vertical face. We don't want it on a vertical face. It would just sort of look like a sconce if we put it on a wall like that. So we want to place it on a face. So now you can see here, when I change it to place on face instead of on vertical face, it's locating it a little bit more accurately here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place these over here in the in the gypsum ceiling here. And gosh, these are big. I want to change that. That's too big. Let's go ahead and place a different one. There's the one we want. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and place these here. And notice I'm placing them arbitrarily because I'm going to align them in a moment. So these are pretty bright usually. These can be put roughly every 8 feet. Let's go ahead and take a detail line and just kind of, how far apart are they right now? They're really close together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of one of them. Now I'm showing you the process here to align these, but I'm going to just show it to you once, and then as I do this for other components on the ceiling, I'm going to pause my video. Otherwise, you'll just be watching me do mouse clicks. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit the equal button. And now the distance is the same between these two elements. And then what I might do is just shift them a little bit over. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so now they're placed apart a little bit farther, and you can see that they'll light up, kind of filling up each of these areas. It'll be a little bit brighter in between, but it's not going to put a real hot spot on that wall. I know we're not going to get into really major lighting design right now, but I am wanting to just kind of show you that I'm placing these, and I want to center them. On that soffit. And I'm just deleting these. So as we start to create this reflected ceiling plan, I want you to not place items arbitrarily. I want you to place them with precision and by measuring. So now you know which Rhesus can lights we're going to use. I'm also going to bring in a fluorescent trofer, and those are the square shaped lights that you pop into an acoustic ceiling tile. And a lot of times they're 2x4. You can have them 2x2. They're not very beautiful, but that's what we use to get a lot of light inexpensively throughout a place with an acoustical ceiling tile ceiling. So I'm going to load the family. I'm still here in the lighting section. So we are going to bring in the trofer light right here. Now, when you place these, they need to sit perfectly in that box. So I'm going to modify the location here. And I'm going to grab it by the corner. And I'm going to place it in this corner so that it's perfect. Okay. Now these you can also copy, and you can just grab, and you can do multiple. And you can grab it by its base point. Okay. And I'm just arbitrarily placing them for right now. And we also can place the, we'll go ahead and place a pendant light in the conference room. So those are your 3 lighting types. And again, you could create a series of guidelines here or grid lines to make sure that this is placed correctly. And so you can just hit grab a detail line, and then there may be a quicker or easier way to do this. But this is how I do it. So I have a detail line, and then I'm going to draw another one that is going to give me the midpoint. Of the room, and then you can do the midpoint of this as well. You could also do a diagonal line and find the midpoint there, but I'm going to just move that over. Grab it from the center point here. Go to let me. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and move that table as well, just so that it's aligned. Or since we have to maintain traffic patterns, we could move it up just a little bit, because the eye wouldn't perceive that it's off center there. Okay, so you've got your lighting fixtures that we're going to place here. We've already got them hosted. Now keep in mind that sometimes these lights will want to host to the acoustical ceiling tile ceiling and not on the drywall ceiling. So let's go ahead and take a look here. And let's make sure it's hosted to the right spot. I'm going to look at the elevation. And I should see that light. So let me see what's going on. Well, they're there. These are really thin. You can see they're recessed. So you don't see a thickness of them. There's another family for, and you can see this is an incandescent, so it's not a very efficient one. You can see that if we use an LED, sometimes you can see the little trim thickness in an elevation view, but you can't see it in these ones. Okay. So we've got our lighting placed, and again, I'm going to just bring these elements in first, and then we'll move them around and get the grid perfectly, you know, operational, and get everything perfectly aligned. But those are the lighting, and now what I'm going to do is show you the mechanical equipment. So we're going to go to Place Component, Load Family, and this is not lighting. It's in mechanical, architectural, airside. So we've got supply and return diffusers. So we've got the return here. And another beauty. But again, I'm going to move it, make sure that it's sitting perfectly. And I'm going to just put it again right here because we're going to move them all eventually. But I do want to make sure it's in the right spot so that when I copy it, the base point is in the correct spot. Okay, so I've got my supply and return for my air conditioning. And I'm going to bring in now the fire suppression equipment. Oops. Okay, so sprinklers, I'm going to put this pendant semi-recessed so that we can see it. But a lot of times these things just pop right down from the ceiling. Okay, so it's again, wanting to place it on a vertical face. Okay, so here I'll show you. We want to make sure that it's centered within the acoustical ceiling tile. So we'll move it. And you can see I drew a diagonal in the acoustic ceiling tile and moved the midpoint of the sprinkler to the midpoint of that diagonal. So that one's ready. And then we're going to bring in the exit signs now. It's going to take me a second to find them. I'm going to pause. Okay, so the exit sign is actually in lighting, which makes sense, not in fire suppression. So you can find it, it's actually in the MEP. So once in lighting, we're going to do MEP, which is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, internal, and it's this. Now this is wall hosted, right? Because it goes above an exit door or indicates an exit door. So we would have to put it right here. This is going to be 1. Okay. And then we would actually also have to mount it to the ceiling here as well, so that people could see that there's an exit door located here. So I'm going to just put it right there for now. And then we'll put another one here. Okay, so the only other thing that I want to show you to place now is some outlets, and we'll hit place component once again, load family. And these are an electrical. And they're here. So we've got all different outlets. So duplex is probably what you're used to, with where it's got two places to plug in. We've got them on floors and walls. And then the GFI is the one that you would put for a coffee pot. So we'll go ahead and we'll place a duplex outlet. And we'll go ahead and place one here so that people can plug in their laptops. And look, you can't see it. And I'll show you why in a second. We're also going to load a GFI. So that's where you could plug something in and it's within 5 feet of a water source. So it's going to go on the countertop here, right? Because we might need to plug in an appliance. And there's probably going to need to be an outlet here in the restroom. Okay. And then the only other one I'd like to show you is the range. And that's it says R for range, but that's for like really large equipment where you need twice the amount of electricity to run it. So a range is one example, but sometimes like a copy machine, big copy machine might need one as well. So I'm gonna just go ahead and place one right here, just in case we need it. Now, you can't see them. And that's because if you go to place a component and you put a range, look at it. This is elevation from level. So it's 9 3/4 inches off of the ground. Now, this is a reflected ceiling plan. So we're only seeing really what you'd see if you looked on the floor, laid on the floor and looked up. And I guess if you were really, really flat, you would still see the outlets. But a reflected ceiling plan isn't showing things that are that low on the ground, but we want to show them because this is an electrical plan also. So what we have to do is go to our view, and we have to go to our view range here. Now, the top is what you see if you look all the way up from the ground, and you can see here we would see up to level 3. That's correct. The bottom is, what you would see if you looked down. Now, if you had, for example, a skylight in the ceiling that allowed you to look up through the floor of the level above, you could change this so that you could see all the way up to essentially the 4th floor ceiling. You could say, for example, you cut a hole in the slab and there was randomly a room downstairs that you wanted visibility through the floor, like a library or something. You could cut a hole in the floor and change the bottom to locate to the bottom of that basement floor. The view depth is how far down you can see, but we're really most concerned with the cut plane. Now the cut plane here is set at 7 feet 6 inches, and that's basically Revit saying, I'm going to show you everything on the ceiling that's located at 7'6" and above. So if I change this to 6 inches and I hit apply, the outlets will show up. See? Okay. The problem is that all the furniture is going to show up too, because um, that's also at you know, 6 inches and above. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation. The way that we're going to have to manage this part is by hiding all of the furniture in view. And then that'll help it go away. And then you're going to have to also hide, you know, the built-in pieces and things like that. And it's just really, it comes down to visibility. Now, were we to also do a switching plan, which is a little bit outside of the scope of this class, you'll learn it in your lighting class, but were you to do a switching plan, we would put switches on the walls, and switches are also located about 4 feet above the finished floor. And so we would have to adjust the view plane as well to show those. But right now, you know how to place symbols for the various ceiling elements. So we've got 3 different types of lighting, supply and return vents. And we also have some fire suppression equipment here. You can see you've got the sprinkler and the exit sign. And we've also placed some outlets. You know how to adjust the host of ceiling elements, whether it's on a vertical face or a horizontal face. We also know that we can click on these things and we can see the height that it's, you know, constrained to. We can see these elements in multiple views, right? Because we looked at that in an elevation view. We can also see a section view real quick if you want to. And here I'll show you. We'll cut through this lighting real quick, and I'll show you. See? You can see cutting through the lighting and seeing those elements right there. And you learned a really important thing, which is how to adjust the cut plane and view range. So if you, for example, can't see your lighting in a certain view, it could be either because it's the cut plane is set too low or too high, or perhaps it's hosted on a different ceiling. So you could see here, if I were to look at a reflected ceiling plan of this space and wasn't able to see the lighting, it's possible that it could be hosted, or actually that's not a good example. If I wasn't able to see the recessed cans I placed, it could be possibly because there's a ceiling left up above here. We deleted it, but you could also, elements could also be hosted to the wrong ceiling, and you would be able to tell that because they'd be located, you'd be able to see them in a section view. Okay. So you now know how to place all these elements. So we'll just take some time and kind of modify them and then match them to a plan that's been given, and they'll be all in the right locations.